And welcome to Nursing News You Can Use at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host. Today is April the 3rd, 2024. A wonderful Wednesday to you. And looking forward to the upcoming week. I want to say thank you to those of you that are watching on our Facebook page and also those that are watching us on our YouTube channel, the Nurse Shark Academy channel. All right, let's go ahead and get into our affirmations for today. So, our first affirmation or our affirmation of the day is good health comes from love and appreciation, and I feel wonderful physically and emotionally. Good health comes from love and appreciation, and I feel wonderful physically and emotionally. So that is our affirmation from the day for the Louise Hay calendar for 2024. So I'm very excited about that. So again, I got this from Amazon. This isn't being sponsored by anyone, but I do recommend you getting the affirmation calendar. It's nice to be able to have some positivity to start your day. All right, let's get into the news because there's a lot to cover as usual on the news desk. And so, first up is coming out of Boston. This is Boston 25 News reporting, and it says 25 investigates families and staff fight for new leadership at Roxbury's historic nursing home. So, as you know, we've been covering several stories of nursing homes and hospitals, but a lot of nursing homes that have been closing or being sold for various reasons. And a lot of this comes out of funding from the pandemic and loss of funding and loss of residents, also with the new CMS mandates that are coming on board on staffing levels. So, staffing crisis is still a problem in a lot of these industries. And in one story that I read previously this week was that the nursing home was struggling to hire workers because McDonald's was making more. And there's a story about in California where they're proposing that minimum wage be $25 an hour. So that's a big issue. So let's go on and get into this story, particularly out of Boston. So it says an attorney representing a group of residents and staff at a historic Boston nursing home has asked a judge to appoint a receiver to maintain the facility while they fight to keep it open. During an emergency hearing Tuesday, Orrin Selstrom from Lawyers for Civil Rights said the Massachusetts Department of Health has filed an affidavit in support of his motion for a court-ordered takeover. So, as it was previously reported by this outlet, Edgar P. Benjamin Healthcare Center CEO Tony Francis announced plans to close the home in July, citing insurmountable financial challenges. In 2021, during the pandemic, Francis was one of the highest paid non-profit nursing home administrators in the state at about $628,592. I just had to stop there for a minute. That was a bit. I'm reacting to these stories in real time with you, so I had to stop for a minute and think about this. He had over $500,000 in salary. I am a nurse practitioner and take care of the patients and make a fraction of that. And then you look at what the nurses and the nurses' aides make. Yeah. Okay, let's go on. Selstrom told Suffolk Superior Court Judge Katie Rayburn that residents have been put at risk by the planned closure and court intervention is needed to avert imminent harm to elderly patients. The Benjamin has served the Boston's African American, should have known, community for nearly a century at 120 Fisher Avenue in Mission Hill. So this is like the second historically African American nursing home that's gone belly up that we reported on. So, and I'm not saying it is just those nursing homes because there have been several others as well that they're in different communities, but I do think that there has to be a little bit more consideration when you think about the population that it's going to affect. When you're looking at these types of populations, sometimes they're the most vulnerable. And that is when it puts me at pause. So anyway, so let's go on. So it's been open for almost a century. The nursing home is licensed for up to 200 beds, but only 70 residents remain. Sahlstrom raised several issues first reported by 25 investigators, including multiple periods where employees did not get paychecks or their checks bounced. And I previously told about stories when I worked at a particular facility as a CNA. I was told to make sure I go directly from work, directly to the bank, to make sure that my paycheck was covered. Because the first ones to cash their check were more than likely guaranteed to get their money. But if you waited, this is before, of course, they had direct deposit. But if you waited, your check may bounce. Anyway, he also described poor security, lack of medical supplies, including colostomy bags, broken emergency call buttons, and missed meals. Patients are losing weight. This is a critical component in good nutrition for patients, particularly elderly patients. And the idea that these are causing this kind of situation creates the imminent harm, Sahlstrom said. A lawyer representing the nursing home said the facility has been working closely with the Department of Health, and the facility has undergone multiple inspections since the planned closure was announced more than a month ago. According to attorney Adam Littman, this is a facility that is getting by, that is taking appropriate care of residents. They are going through a closure. They will be closing in just a few months, and the court should let them proceed. Littman said the Benjamin has been following all the protocols required for a planned closure, and he described the nursing home as, quote, not economically viable. Judge Rayburn didn't immediately rule on the request for a receiver. Tony Francis did not respond to a request for comment. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And again, it's a shame when a facility closes, one that has been available for that length of time and serving that population. I know it's going to be devastating to the residents that lose it and to those employees that are there. So we'll be keeping an eye on those things as well. Okay, so here's another follow-up. In this ever-growing nursing fraud case, nurse diploma mill fraud case. Okay, so this is coming from HastingsTribune.com, and it says federal judge sends grandma, 2 others to prison for running nursing school diploma mill. So as a group of weeping supporters bid her farewell, a 72-year-old grandmother was escorted out of a Fort Lauderdale federal courtroom to prison on Tuesday after a judge sentenced Gail Russ to more than 6 years for running, quote, a diploma mill out of a defunct nursing school that sold thousands of fake degrees for millions of dollars. Russ, 72, the former registrar at the Palm Beach School of Nursing, was convicted of conspiracy along with a dozen wire fraud charges at trial in December when jurors found that she carried out the dirty work of the school's owner by selling 3,383 bogus diplomas for $10,000 to $20,000 each. This is where I say, know what you're supposed to do and don't let employers rope you into doing things that will come back on you illegally. So the federal prosecutor, Christopher Clark, says that Ms. Russ was the spigot, S-P-I-G-O-T, spigot, would you hear me correctly? U.S. District Judge Raj Singhal, this is what he told the judge, describing that the estimated $65 million racket during the sentencing hearings for Russ and 2 other convicted defendants. Without Ms. Russ, none of the diplomas would have been issued. Again, this woman was 72. So I don't know her. I haven't watched the case. We haven't been in the courtroom. But I just wonder if she's just doing what she was told. But Singhal, who described Russ as a mule who handles all the administration at the storefront nursing school, gave the elderly Coconut Creek woman a bit of a break. He opted to sentence her to 6.5 years rather than as much as double the punishment under federal sentencing guidelines after the defendant, her lawyers, a niece, and a pastor of her church asked for leniency. 10 years is like a life sentence for Ms. Russ, said one of her attorneys, Samantha Vassinia, who asked the judge to give her probation. She is irreplaceable, said her niece, Corinthia Miller, who's an attorney. She's needed in our community and our family. She's been a faithful member of our church, said Bill Gowdy, pastor of Cathedral Church of God in Deerfield Beach. I'm just asking for the mercy of the court, Russ told the judge. My health is declining. I understand what is taking place, but if I can be granted probation, I will not break it. Clark, the prosecutor who won the convictions of about 25 dependents swept up in the South Florida nursing school scandal, reminded the judge of Russ's wrongdoing. This is a court of law, not a temple or a church, he said. In addition to Russ, the judge sentenced Cassandra Jean, 38, a student recruiter from New York, to 3 years in prison, and Valerie DeRosio, 58, a student recruiter from New Jersey, to 2 years and 9 months. At a trial in December, the jury found Jean, who owned homes in Wellington, Florida, and Long Island, New York, guilty of conspiracy in 4 wire fraud counts, and DeRosso guilty of conspiracy in 3 wire fraud counts. Jean, despite a bid to surrender in June after her daughter finishes first grade, was ordered to go to prison immediately. DeRosso, who was ordered to surrender to prison authorities on Friday in New York, New Jersey. At trial, prosecutors Clark and John Junger said thousands of students paid an average of $15,000 each for bogus academic credentials from the Palm Beach School of Nursing after Florida regulators had shut it down in 2018. So they could sit for LPN and RN licensing exams in New York and gain employment in the healthcare field without proper training. The 3 sentenced on Tuesday were the remaining defendants of 14 originally charged in January of last year. 11 pleaded guilty and cooperated with authorities, including several who testified at trial. All were targets of a massive federal crackdown on nursing school diploma mill that authorities say was centered in South Florida and extended to the Northeast and Texas. Attorneys for the 3 defendants argued at the trial that they did legitimate work and looked out for the interests of students. The defense tried to raise doubts about the charges by focusing on the government's star witness, the former owner of Palm Beach School of Nursing, Johanna Napoleon. She had hired Russ as a permanent employee and collaborated with Jean and DeRosso as associates through 2021. Before trial, Napoleon pleaded guilty to wire fraud conspiracy, was sentenced to 21 months in prison, and paid about $3.5 million in financial penalties to the U.S. government. One of Russ's attorneys, Gray Tesh, described Russ as a hardworking, salaried employee who was well liked by her colleagues at Palm Beach School of Nursing and took her orders from Napoleon. He said that Napoleon was perhaps the most culpable defendant, yet she was held accountable by prosecutors for far less in financial losses incurred by the school's student. This is kind of funny. Gray Tesh said, in the words of comedian Chris Rock, that ain't right. Jean's defense attorneys Todd Malone and Rod Viren also asked the judge for leniency, arguing that there was no financial victims of the nursing school diploma scheme. Well, I take that back because, hey, you're saying there's no financial victims. Are you sure? Because I think those students that thought they had a credentials and were able to work as nurses now can. And there's actually some of those students that have been caught up in this that are fighting to get their license just now. So I don't think you can't say this was a victimless crime. And the fact that they were ill prepared to actually be taking care of patients. And so the patients that they allegedly helped and worked with were probably harmed because they had inadequate nurses or fake nurses working. So there's a whole lot. So I don't know if I would say that, but maybe they could make that argument legally because none of them apparently were in the courtroom. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to go on. So so basically it says Jean's defense attorneys asked the judge for leniency, arguing that there were no financial victims of the nursing school diploma scheme and that their client was a registered nurse who referred students from New York to the Palm Beach school. The health care providers lost nothing, Malone said. Are you sure about that? But Clark, the prosecutor, pointed out that Jean bought 2 homes worth more than $1 million and $2 million, respectively, in Wellington and Long Island with her ill-gotten proceeds from the diploma mill. She was close to Ms. Napoleon and saw how she made a boatload of money with very little work. This is a crime of greed and opportunity. Attorney Martin Bergerstan, who represented DeRosso, a New Jersey educator who once ran a nursing school that went bankrupt, tried to drum up sympathy for his client. He's not sitting in a 2.1 million mansion, uh, Bergerstan said, asking the judge for probation. In fact, he's upside down financially. Well, as they say, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So at the beginning of last year, prosecutors with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami rattled the healthcare industry and the Haitian American community when they unveiled a batch of criminal cases charging about 25 defendants who had ownership interests in or worked as employees and recruiters for the Palm Beach School of Nursing. And so then that's where I have, you're working, you think what you I don't know if they were doing wrong. Not everybody, the people that just kind of work there, which is kind of a shame. So we've had more. We've already talked about the fallout from this story, but it is a shame that she got swept up into this, and apparently she was guilty and knew some things. So I'm hoping that maybe with you know giving her advanced age and time, that she could get out early. 6.5 years is a long time, but we'll see. All right, so here's our next story coming up. This is coming from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I happened to see this and I wanted to share this. It was a press release that was sent out, and it says HHS Office for Civil Rights imposes a civil monetary penalty on New Jersey nursing facility for failing to provide timely access to medical records or patient records. So I wanted to share this because if you are, a family member, this is more of an educational moment. But if you're a family member, or maybe you have power of attorney, you're the legal guardian, or etc., this is important to know what your rights are. And this is a case of knowing your rights. So it says today, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the HHS, Office of Civil Rights, announced a $100,000 civil monetary penalty against Essex Residential Care LLC, doing business as Hackensack Meridian Health West Caldwell Care Center, a skilled nursing facility that provides long-term care and rehabilitation services. OCR investigated Hackensack Meridian Health, under the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, which is HIPAA, privacy rule for failing to provide a patient's personal representative with timely access to the patient's medical records. So let's kind of delve into this, because I was curious to know what they consider to be timely in all of this. So I wanted to make sure we looked at this. So it says the HIPAA rule is the federal law that establishes national standards to protect individuals' medical records, sets limits and conditions on the uses and disclosures of protected health information, and gives individuals certain rights, including the right to timely access and obtain a copy of their health records. So you can have a copy of your health records. There's certain stipulations, like for instance, if it has something to do with mental health and it could be detrimental to the person, then the physician or whoever with the certify that they can't have. There's certain rules that allow you to do that, but for the most part, the record belongs to the patient. It says today's action resolves a matter where patient records were not provided in a timely manner. A patient's timely access to health records is paramount for medical care. The Office of Civil Rights continues to receive complaints from individuals and personal representatives on behalf of individuals who do not receive timely access to their health records. OCR will continue to vigorously enforce this essential right to ensure compliance by healthcare facilities across the country. This is from OCR Director Melanie Fontes Rayner. So in May of 2020, OCR received a complaint from the alleging that Hackensack Meridian Health failed to provide a personal representative with access to his mother's medical records. The records were allegedly withheld even after Hackensack Meridian Health received sufficient documentation demonstrating that the son was serving as his mother's personal representative. The requested records were sent to the personal representative in November of 2020 as a result of OCR's investigation. So he requested this sometime in May or before May, and then submitted the complaint to OCR. OCR then investigated, and it took them to November for him to get the records. And it just kind of makes me wonder what's happening here. OCR found that Hackensack Meridian Health failed to respond timely to a HIPAA right of access request. In September of 2023, OCR issued a notice of proposed determination seeking to impose a civil money penalty. Hackensack then waived its right to a hearing and did not contest OCR's findings. Accordingly, OCR imposed a civil monetary penalty of $100,000. So again, I'm saying that if you think that that you are being unlawfully denied access to your medical records, this is another avenue that you can go. You can file a complaint with the OCR, Office of Civil Rights, and to see if you get access to your medical records or that of the person with whom you are over as a guardian. Okay. In other news, we have nurses going on strike yet again. Nurses at 3 Santa Clara hospitals on strike as negotiations continue. This is from CBS San Francisco. So 3 hospitals are impacted at Valley Medical Center in San Jose, O'Connor Hospital also in San Jose, and St. Louis Regional Hospital in Gilroy. It is the first time in the union's almost 50-year history that nurses have gone on strike, something they said is a sign of just how bad conditions have gotten. Josh Manamankohaya, I'm sorry, Josh, so I don't keep messing up your name. I'm just going to call you Josh or Josh Man. I apologize for that. Is one of 3,750 nurses who are on strike. He works at Valley Medical Center at the Progressive Care Unit Nurse, which is a step down from ICU. Valley is really focused on the community, and that's what's really resonated with me, said Josh. Josh started his career at Valley Med straight out of nursing school almost 9 years ago and worked there through the pandemic. He said it took a toll on everyone. It's like a switch went off where it's like, okay, pandemic is done. Let's go back to how things were. And it's like, no, things have changed. And I will say that's important to note that you can't go back to pre-pandemic. There is no real going back. Things have changed. So we have to accept the new reality that we're in. And I think a lot of facilities aren't prepared to do that. They think, oh, we can just roll back the clock and everything can be hunky-dory like it was. And that's not how it's going to happen. The Registered Nurses Professional Association represents the nurses at the Santa Clara County hospitals, and their members are striking because of a lack of staffing and high patient-to-nurse ratios, as well as for pay raises, which they say will close the salary gap between county and private hospitals. We've made repeated efforts to get RNPA back to the table. That's our Registered Nurse Professional Association, to the table so we can reach a fair and sustainable contract, said James Williams, the Santa Clara County executive. County leaders led a press conference earlier Tuesday addressing the strike, saying since 2020, nurses have gotten between a 30% and 42% pay increase. Okay, that sounds great, right? But these are county nurses. So I bet they were actually making below what the standard is for nurses if you're looking at public versus private. And so that 30 to 42% could be like $1, So what does it mean in actual numbers? That's what we need to know. Yeah. So he says, we are facing a $250 million structural deficit as a county organization. We need a contract that is fair and sustainable for our nurses and for all of the other dedicated public employees who provide critical services that our county residents rely on. They also said that they brought in almost 1,000 temporary nurses to keep all emergency services in the hospital running, but many elective surgeries and non-emergency appointments were rescheduled. So, Dr. Jennifer Tong, the CEO of Santa Clara Valley Healthcare, says despite the labor action, our hospitals and clinics remain open, and we are continuing to be able to provide all emergent and critical services to the community. Nurses says they're also looking out for the best interests of the patients. She says this isn't just for show. Josh says this isn't just for show. This isn't just about getting raises or whatnot. It's also about when you come in as a patient, we want you to know that you're going to get the best care possible. So the last contract negotiation between the nurses and the county was back in September of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. Union leaders said they have not ruled out another strike at the hospital sometime in the future if they aren't able to reach an agreement with the county soon. So we'll see what happens with this story as strikes across the country continue to happen. And the crazy thing is, it's always the same three issues: staffing, low staffing, high nurse to patient ratios, salary problems. Yeah. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then we're going to get back to our next part of our show. Nurses, are you ready for more? My mission is for you to own your seat at the table of nurse entrepreneurship, gaining confidence, skills, and the freedom to live your life on your own terms. Assisting you in achieving your goals through tailored advice, continuous learning, and a collaborative approach is at the heart of everything I do. Stop being eaten alive. Come feel the sun. Be a nurse shark. All right, let's go on to our next story. This is something that's actually closer to home. This is from McKnight's Long-Term Care News, and it says nursing homes to benefit from new geriatric workforce grant. A new grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services will help enhance geriatric care training for the long-term care workforce, according to the leaders of the Geriatrics Workforce Enhanced Program at the University of Southern Indiana. While that school's program is the direct beneficiary of the $120,000 grant, collaborating nursing homes and worker education programs will be looped into the benefits. This supplemental funding enables the USI GWEP to enhance the partnerships we have with academic institutions and nursing homes, said Katie Elman, a PhD director of the USI's Bronstein Center for Healthy Aging, of which the program is a part. Already funded by a nearly $3.7 million award from the HHS Health Resources and Services Administration, the program's director announced the additional funding for fiscal year 2024 Monday. With workforce challenges constantly front and center in long-term care, this program is another example of fostering partnerships with academic and government organizations can open new training and retention opportunities for providers while sharpening the skills of nursing home workers. The funding will be built on the success of existing GWEP programs to strengthen nursing home staff training, employee retention, and quality care. Our efforts are designed to enhance evidence-based learning opportunities for current nursing home employees and open the door to nursing home careers with future healthcare professionals. Among the program's prior successes, partnering nursing homes have sent employees to be trained as, quote, mental health first aid instructors. Those employees then return to their facilities to teach other staff about how to care for residents struggling with mental health. Training nursing home workers to specialize in care areas like this can be a significant boost for nursing home workforces, experts say, because it helps retain facilities' strongest employees by giving them the means to rise up the career ladder and feel more valued day to day. This year, improving dementia care education is a primary focus for the grant funds. For example, Amy Pierce, instructor in nursing at USI, described a dementia simulation that the university nursing programs is adding to its curriculum with help from GWEP. Dementia Live is a high-impact dementia simulation experience that immerses students into life with dementia. The intent of the simulation is to provide training for nursing students to promote knowledge, understanding, and empathy when providing care. The program is also creating a new ageism presentation for nursing home care workers and is working with the Indiana Department of Health to update dementia care education in the state's curriculum for incoming certified nursing assistants. Two nursing homes are among the partners for this year's projects: Oasis Dementia Care in Evansville, Indiana, and Newburgh Healthcare in Newburgh, Indiana, as well as a local healthcare education center and USI's own bachelor level nursing program. So, congratulations to that program. I wish it much success. Okay, so I wanted to share this story. It came across my feed. It is not local to us, but I think it's important. This is a story that's coming out of westentidings.com. Yeah, westlandtidings.com. It's a nurse that's gone missing. It's an older nurse. And so I just wanted to share this. And in fact, I'm actually going to share my screen so that you can see her picture. But it says Rose Lynn Care Center nurse missing since March 26th. So I want to go ahead and share that with you. So that you can see her picture. In case anyone that is watching our show happens to be in the area in Oregon and Canada, please take a look out for this missing nurse right here. This is her picture. Okay. So a nursing coordinator who works at Westland Assisted Living Facility has been missing since March 26th, according to local law enforcement. Christina Ace, 61, lives in Vancouver, Washington, and works at the Rose Lynn Care Center in West Lynn. She has not been seen since March 26, according to Vancouver police and her co-workers at the assisted living facility. In March 31st news release, Vancouver police said her disappearance was, quote, suspicious and far outside of what her normal patterns consist of. Ace reportedly left her home in Vancouver around 5:30 a.m. Her husband reported her missing that evening. Her co-workers at Rose Lynn also reported her missing when she did not show up for her shift. Police believe she may have crossed the border into Oregon after leaving home the morning of March 26. However, police located her 2013 Toyota RAV4 not far from her home in Vancouver the following day. So we're not sure what's happening. It says she normally gets to work about 7:30. Rose Lynn Care Center Executive Director Brady Waldorf told the media. I guess she left for work at 5:30, according to one of the stories I saw. I always thought she left closer to 6:30, but she left home. Shortly thereafter, she texted one of her co-workers saying she was going to be late and then never showed up. In the March 31st news, Vancouver police noted a person of interest has not been identified. The statement also mentioned that Ace's husband and co-workers have continued cooperating with police. Waldorf said staff at Rose Lynn are, quote, heartbroken, concerned, dismayed, and befuddled at the disappearance of Ace, who worked at the nursing home for more than 15 years. Waldorf says she's mentored a lot of her staff here. Some of them have been working with her for 10 years. They plan to hold a visual for her at 7 p.m. on Friday, April 5th at the Care Center parking lot. Vancouver police have no updates as of yesterday. So just to say again, please see if you can help find this person. So I wanted to share that. Okay, next story here. This is a story that's been going around on the media, and I've picked it up on other places. And it says nursing workforce diversity increases, but room for growth remains. The nursing field is getting closer to improving medical workforce diversity, with new figures from the Health Resources and Services Administration, or HRSA, showing greater proportions of non-Hispanic Black and non-Hispanic Asian people working as licensed registered nurses. That's important. RNs. The report, which used data from 2022, showed a net 3 and 4 percentage point increase in the number of Black and Asian nurses in the United States, respectively. However, the number of Hispanic nurses decreased slightly between 2018 and 2022 from 10% of the nursing workforce to 9%. These findings come as healthcare continues to stare down striking workforce problems. During and after the early aughts of the COVID-19 pandemic, the industry has seen serious issues with provider satisfaction, leaving health care professionals to exit medicine in droves. In addition to shortages, healthcare organizations have been grappling with calls to improve workforce diversity amid calls to promote health equity. According to the HRSA figures, the number of licensed RNs went from just under 4 million in 2018 to just over 4 million in 22, showing the industry might be rebounding from the employment changes that happened during the pandemic. But while overall employment numbers stayed somewhat stable in the past 4 years, the report showed that the demographics seriously fluctuated. As noted above, HRSA clocked an increase in the number of Black and Asian nurses. The nursing field is still predominantly white, with around 2/3 of RNs in the U.S. identifying as white. Still, that is down for 73% of RNs identifying as white in 2018, suggesting that the racial composition of the nursing workforce may be shifting to reflect the total population. There are also more nurses identifying as male in the healthcare workforce, with 12% of nurses identifying as such in 2022. In 2018, that figure was 10%. But although representation related to race, ethnicity, and sex is slightly increasing, the HRSA report showed that the diversity of languages spoken remains stagnant. Multilingual healthcare providers are important assets to the organization and industry at large as medicine continues to push towards health equity. Providing language access and congruence at the point of care can improve patient safety and the overall patient experience. In 2018, 82% of nurses reported they spoke no additional languages other than English. And 2022, that figure remained pretty much the same, with 81% of nurses reporting that they spoke no additional languages other than English. And I can say this, it makes me wonder why we cannot offer the NCLEX exam and other things in other languages besides English, if we want to promote that. I mean, if you are say you speak Spanish and that's your native language, how hard would it be to have it translated into Spanish for you to take your test? I'm just curious about those things. So if anybody has any insight into that, let me know. But there's more to this story, which looking at our time, I don't want to go into it, but I do want to say that it's very encouraging to hear that. As the president of the Black Nurses of Anderson, very encouraging to hear that. We always want to encourage more people to go into the field and the profession. So we'll see what happens and how this grows. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and hit this story before we take our next break. But I wanted to say this, and I have to say I'm sorry to nurses in Oklahoma City and what happened with your Oklahoma governor. But I'm going to say if you're in Oklahoma and you're listening, and you're a nurse and you have not registered to vote, maybe it's time that you do. All right, let's get into it. Stitt vetoes bill that would let nurse practitioners to prescribe drugs. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt has vetoed a bill that would have allowed providers like nurse practitioners to independently prescribe certain drugs, saying these professionals shouldn't have this power. Okay. It's the wording that just kind of, grates at you. All right. So Senate Bill 455, authored by Senator Brenda Stanley, Republican Midwest City, and Representative Marcus McIntyre, Republican Duncan, would have allowed advanced practice registered nurses to order and administer certain drugs. Those mid-level, I hate that term, those mid-level providers include certified nurse practitioners, clinical nurse specialists, and certified nurse midwives. Under this measure, APRNs could have obtained 6,240 hours of practice with physician supervision, apply for licensure through the Board of Nursing, and independently prescribe Schedule 3 through 5 drugs, which includes things like anabolic steroids, Ambien, and Xanax. Stanley said during the bill's hearing on the Senate floor it could help combat the state's physician shortage in rural areas. I know that rural Oklahoma is desperate for health care. APRNs can treat a sinus infection. They can treat and prescribe Lipitor for cholesterol, Stanley said. They have a wide scope, but the bill is just within their scope of practice. Stitt said in a news release these professionals can set up clinics in rural Oklahoma and practice in primary care settings, but he doesn't think that they should be allowed to prescribe Schedule 3 through 5 drugs without a physician's supervision. He said he did support the exploration of a portion of the bill that would have mandated licensure boards like the Oklahoma Board of Nursing, State Board of Medical Licensure and Supervision, and State Board of Osteopathic Examiners promulgate rules. Those rules would have included governing supervision requirements for APRNs who can't prescribe independently and limiting the amount of a supervising physician can charge for supervision. The Oklahoma State Medical Association opposed the bill. No big surprise there. While the Association of Oklahoma Nurse Practitioners supported it, again, no surprise there. So the Oklahoma State Medical Association Director of Government Affairs, Matt Robinson, told State Impact that a main concern for physicians with this bill was misdiagnosis and mistreatment that would come from less experience. He said this would also impact costs for patients. Okay, show me the evidence. Show me the evidence that says that. Show me the evidence. Okay, so this is what Stitt says. The legislature can explore other ways to attract healthcare providers to rural communities through things like tax credits. And so I'm going to say, show me where that is the case, because in other states, full practice authority has been granted to other nurses. So why is this suddenly not going to work in your state? Just so you know, I'm an advocate for nurse practitioners as I am one. So it's not no sense there. And can I say I'm not advocating that we do things that are outside of our scope of practice. I don't want to do things outside of my scope of practice. I'm quite happy doing things within my scope of practice. Sometimes there are things in my scope of practice I wish I didn't have to do. But I will say this. I think that there is more than enough room for everyone, and we should be looking at solutions and not ways to tear each other down. All right. So let's go ahead and take our next break, and then we'll get to our last 2 stories. Tired of feeling trapped in a job that no longer fulfills you? Is your nursing job no longer the fun-filled adventure you imagined? Find your passion again through nurse entrepreneurship. Step out into the light and come feel the sun. Join the Nurse Shark Academy today at thenurssharkacademy.biz and come feel the sun. Okay, our last 2 stories for today are our nursing making a difference stories. So the first one is coming out from AFAM point of view. I just happened to see this, and it says Western Massachusetts, make it bigger so I can see it. Massachusetts Black Nurses Association, 3 decades of service to the community and the profession. So I just wanted to say congratulations. And I'm going to share, I just want to show this because I think this is wonderful. So let me share my screen real quick. I always like to, when we have stories like this where people making a difference, I want to share this with you. So this is the picture, and I'll make it a little bit bigger. This is the picture of the Black Nurses Association. Doesn't this look wonderful? Okay, so this says the Western Massachusetts Black Nurses Association, founded in 1994, will celebrate their 30th anniversary on May 4th, 2024, with a theme entitled Celebrating 30 Years of Nursing Leadership. The keynote address will be given by Dr. Linda Thompson. Dr. Thompson is, let me get smaller real quick. There we go. Is Westfield State University's 21st president. The master of ceremonies will be Wesley Days Jr., multimedia journalist. So the WMBNA is a nonprofit organization and chapter of the National Black Nurses Association. The organization has forged two pathways to foster nursing leadership over the last 30 years, one by addressing health needs of the Black community, and two, recruiting, counseling, and assisting Black persons interested in nursing to ensure the constant progression of Blacks into the field and providing an ongoing stream of educational workshops for Black nurses throughout the region. So they have many of these activities. I don't have the time to read over everything, but I just want to say congratulations from one member of the Black Nurses Association here in Anderson to this WMBNA. Congratulations on your 30th year anniversary, and may you have many, many more. Okay, and our last story of nurses making a difference, and I just thought this story was wonderful as well. This is a story of a nurse that wanted to go into nursing, specifically to go into hospice at the age of 60. So I don't want to hear any excuses from anyone that says I cannot start my business, I cannot go back to nursing school or become a nurse at any age. She is 60 and she's already doing it, and I wanted to celebrate her. So Ginger Goldman is one of our nurses making a difference, and she's the epitome of, as they say, of it's never too late. Goldman, who is 66, comes from a line of women who value usefulness almost as much as they value family. Her mother used to say that by the end of her life, she wanted to be, quote, all used up. Perhaps that's why the Los Angeles native decided to become a nurse at the age of 60 after a nearly 30-year hiatus from her last full-time paid gig. When Goldman started college in 1975, she wanted to be a clinical psychologist. After graduating as a psychology major from UCLA, she briefly followed the PhD path, but ended up getting a master's degree in school psychology. She loved being a school psychologist and did it happily for 5 years until she had her first baby. She quit her job and for the next 25 years would be a stay-at-home mom. Goldman threw herself into nurturing her kids and their communities, getting involved in her schools in whatever way she could, but her children eventually grew into adults. Later, her mother developed uterine cancer because of her participation in a research study that examined the long-term effects of taking hormones. Goldman says, we all didn't want her to do the study, but she had 4 daughters and she wanted to contribute something to women's health. It was just one of her things, along with running polling places, volunteering at homeless shelters, becoming a real estate agent, and being the president of every PTA. Goldman accompanies her mother to all of her doctor's appointments. They do crossword puzzles and swap jokes during her mother's chemotherapy infusions. The cancer ultimately metastasized to her lungs, and her doctor suggested it might be time to stop curative treatment and consider hospice care. She wanted to show us how to do this, how to die, said Goldman. She wanted this to be an okay experience for all of us. It was the process of watching her mother die that would change the course of her own life. Goldman said she was touched by the lessons she learned from the hospice nurses who helped her family through that difficult time. So she decided to become a hospice nurse herself. Goldman had never considered being any type of nurse, let alone a hospice nurse. But in 2011, she went to see a counselor at Moore Park College to see if this was a path she could take. Her science credits from college couldn't be more than 7 years old if she wanted to apply to nursing school. Goldman's were more than 30, so she decided to go back to school, retake her science requirements, and apply to nursing school. It wasn't like anyone directly told me I was too old, but most people would ask me if I'd really be happy if I tried to do this. Even well-meaning friends would ask, are you sure you really want to go back to school? Nearly everyone in her classes was younger than 22, and she was older than most of her professors. On top of that, studying science had completely changed since her UCL days. In the 1970s, a computer was a place you went to where you had to punch information into physical key cards. But Goldman pushed through. She said with the kindness of her classmates and teachers was paramount in helping her to achieve her goal. People bash millennials all the time, but they accept people for their differences. Nobody made me feel like I didn't belong there. I don't think I would have been as generous in my thinking if I saw someone like me in my classes in 1975. Good lesson for the generations. After successfully chipping away at her science credits, Goldman applied and was accepted into the nursing program of California State University, Channel Islands. She was still older than all of her peers and teachers, but she didn't care, and nobody else seemed to care either. Her life experience, especially being a mother and a caretaker for decades, were her superpowers. I told you nurses have superpowers. When clinical rotation started at 6 a.m. in East LA, she had no problem driving a group of other nursing school students from her neighborhood to the hospital across town. She'd bring them water and blankets, they'd fall asleep in the car, and she'd wake them all up when they got to the hospital. Being 40 years older than everyone else also meant that she didn't have the same qualms as many of her fellow students. She says they were still collecting data on themselves. Am I a good student? Am I a good person? Their awareness of themselves and each other made it really hard for my classmates to stand up and talk in class and ask questions. I'm so far past that point in life. I know what my flaws are, but I don't have anything to prove. During clinical rotations, Goldman wasn't afraid to interact with the patients socially as well as medically, when many of her peers would often be much more timid, afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing. It was because of this attitude that Goldman said patients seemed more comfortable with her. She attributes this partly to the fact that no one assumed she was a student. She looked too old to be new at anything, she joked. The patients needed somebody to talk to sometimes. They were people, not just plants that needed watering. That was another reason she was particularly drawn to hospice care. Most of her classmates were set on working in pediatrics or emergency medicine. When she said she wanted to be a hospice nurse, other students and even some teachers were stunned. Goldman said she was surprised that the end of life care took up only half of one chapter of her nursing school curriculum. I can say that as being a hospice nurse and worked in hospice as a nurse practitioner and as an aide. Yeah, it's true. Not everybody is going to have a baby or gets cancer or need orthopedic surgery, but everybody dies. A great deal of research has shown that loneliness and isolation pose serious health risks in older populations and may even contribute to higher mortality. Goldman, who has now been working as a hospice nurse for the last few years, sees many patients who she describes as elder orphans. They never had kids and have outlived their loved ones. That is a term I haven't thought of, and it's kind of terrifying. They don't have anyone else to talk to and share memories with. While hospice isn't about getting better, Goldman's knack for chatting and listening, along with her genuine curiosity about the full breadth of a patient's life, likely makes the dying process much less painful, especially for those without any friends or family. Many of her patients will tell her that at some point the world just seemed to go on without them, and said that they feel like they suddenly stop being treated like normal people. Goldman doesn't want patients to dread her visits. She sings with them, makes jokes with them, and asks them thoughtful questions. I feel like I found something that I'm really good at, Goldman said. While she knows her job isn't for everyone, I can't think of doing anything else that would mean as much to me. So this was provided on Medscape. So if you want to further read the story, but I think that's wonderful, and I just think she's great. And congratulations to Nurse Goldman for being our nurse making a difference. And so this will now end all of our news segment for today, and that we still have a few minutes left for our show that I wanted to bring up some great announcements. So want to let you know that coming up in May for Nurses Week, we'll be having our Nurses for the Kingdom 3-day challenge. Online, it's free. You'll get registration information coming out, but I wanted to kind of give you a sneak announcement or a sneak peek announcement that it's coming up. We will be having our Nurses for the Kingdom event. I don't know about you, but as a nurse, I'm kind of tired of the constant drudgery of hearing about what we don't have and how we can't get over. I want us to focus on what is positive, and I want us to have a kingdom mindset about what we can do in our nursing career. So that is going to be coming up for Nurses Week. So look forward to that in May. And then also don't forget that we have classes available for CPR, first aid, trainings that are available for those of you that need to renew your trainings. TB, just go to Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com. And don't forget that we're here at the Nurse Shark Academy to help you build and launch your own business and be successful as a nurse entrepreneur. And you can join us and become a member at the NurseSharkAcademy.biz. And lastly, for those of you that are also seeing our other podcasts. Our podcast episode just went live again on Monday, but now we have a special peak for those that are our patrons of our program on the Nurse Shark Academy. Go to podbean.com and search for the Nurse Shark Academy and become a patron, and you get bonus content for being a patron. And it doesn't cost a lot. Just it would just help us to be able to provide more content for you, upgrade equipment, do more promotions so we can get more listeners and spread the word about the wonderful things that these nurses are doing. So if you want to help and support that endeavor, please go to podbean.com and find our show, the Nurse Shark Academy show. You can also find it on our Facebook, and if you're on our YouTube channel, you can find it there and go back to our Podbean to become a patron. And so help us out, and we appreciate everything that you can do, and we appreciate you for listening. Thank you for all of you that are here, and I just want to say have a great rest of your week, and look forward to seeing you next week with more nursing news you can use.